Let us pray. As Canadians and as Albertans, we give thanks for the precious gifts of freedom and peace which we enjoy. As members of this Legislative Assembly, we rededicate ourselves to the valued traditions of parliamentary democracy as a means of serving both our province and our country. Amen.
Introduction of visitors, presenting petitions, reading and receiving petitions, presenting reports by standing and special committees, notices of motions.
The member for Edmonton Gold Bar.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to give notice that at the end of question period today, I'll introduce a motion under Standing Order 40 for unanimous consent to the following motion. Be it resolved that pursuant to Government Motion 5, Section 4, the Legislative Assembly appoint the following members to the Special Select Committee on Constitutional Reform, Sheldon Schumer and Yolande Gagnon.
Thank you.
Introduction of bills.
The Honourable Member for Smoky River. Thank you, Honourable Members. Sorry, I see Dunvegan. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to introduce Bill number 13, Municipal Statutes Amendment Act 1991. This is an anonymous bill, and I would look forward for debate on second reading and committee of the whole.
The Honourable Member for Dunvegan has moved first reading Bill number 13, Municipal Statutes Amendment Act 1991. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 13, Municipal Statutes Amendment Act 1991, introduced by the Honourable Member, Mr. Clegg, is now read a first time.
The Deputy Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I would move that Bill number 13 be placed in the order paper under Government Bills and Orders.
Having heard the motion, those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Tabling returns and reports.
The Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to table the propane marketing report of the Gasoline Consumers Information Committee and an accompanying news release.
Minister of Economic Development and Trade.
Speaker, I'm pleased to table the annual report for the Department of Economic Development and Trade for the year ending March 31st, 1990.
Minister of Technology, Research and Telecommunications, followed by the Minister of Labour.
Mr. Speaker, it is my pleasure to table the 1990 annual report for the Alberta Research Council.
Minister of Labour.
I'm pleased to file the annual report for the year ended 31 March 1989 for the Alberta Human Rights Commission.
Associate Minister of Agriculture, followed by the Minister of Advanced Education.
Mr. Speaker, it is my pleasure to table the 22nd annual report of the Alberta Hail and Crop Insurance Corporation for the year ended March 31, 1990, and the 1989-1990 annual report of the Alberta Agricultural Research Institute.
Advanced Education.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to file a response to written question number 150.
Minister of the Environment, followed by the member for Grand Prairie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to file the responses to written questions 224, 225, and 226.
Member for Grand Prairie.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased on behalf of the Northern Alberta Development Council to file with the Legislature Library a publication entitled Fundraising Handbook, Fundraising for Community Projects.
Thank you. Member for Edmonton Meadowlark.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to file copies of a letter from the Old Man River Dam Environmental Assessment Panel to the Federal Minister of the Environment requesting that the second diversion tunnel not be filled, that is to say that the reservoir not be filled until such time as the...
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Honourable Member.
Introduction of special guests.
The member for Bow Valley.
Mr. Chairman, in the members gallery we have a former president of the Alberta Association of MDs and Counties and present chairman of the Alberta Assessment Appeal Board, Wallace Daly. Wallace, would please stand and we'd give him the...
Thank you. The member for Cypress Redcliffe, followed by Calgary Milliken.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to introduce in the gallery today Mr. Rob Schellenberg, who is publisher and co-owner of the 40 Mile Commentator.
Calgary Milliken.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased to introduce to you and through you to the members of the legislature a couple from Hong Kong. And they're business people. They're here in Alberta looking for possibly to move here. It's Mr. and Mrs. David and Suzanne Young, and they're accompanied by Terrence Chang from Calgary. They're sitting in the members gallery, and I'd like for them to rise and receive the traditional welcome of the legislature.
Ministerial statements. Oral question period.
Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Health. Mr. Speaker, the healthcare carnage and chaos continues, Mr. Speaker. As we speak, Mr. Speaker, the Calgary District Hospital Group, consisting of the Holy Cross, the Colonel Belcher, and Rocky View hospitals, are announcing that some 200 jobs will be lost to contracting out, plus further jobs to be eliminated outright. Mr. Speaker, this follows job losses, massive job losses at the Calgary General and preventive losses at the Edmonton Board of Health. Mr. Speaker, frankly, what this government is doing to health care is outrageous, and we can't afford a conservative government any longer. My question is a very simple one to the minister. Will the minister confirm that these positions at the Calgary District Hospital Group are indeed being slashed?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Calgary District Hospital Group was a participant in the acute care funding plan, performed, frankly, very well under the acute care funding plan. Presumably, they may be making some decisions within their administration as to how they might best use their resources. I believe they're proceeding in the proper way. If the honourable member has a specific question, then I would be happy to look into it for him.
Well, we have many specific questions. We just don't get any answers, Mr. Speaker. But Mr. Speaker, talk about the wise use of resources. It's because this government has lots of money for all sorts of things like Novotel, but no money for hospitals, and we're facing this problem, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, let's look at the wise use of resources. Take the example of the Calgary General. We are advised that the hospital has been forced to lay off aides and attendants who make $10, $11 an hour, plus benefits, only to contract back these positions from private sources who pay $7 an hour with no benefits, Mr. Speaker. It's called regressive conservative economics, Mr. Speaker. The same thing's going to happen, of course, in the Calgary District Group. Mr. Speaker, we will do it. Let's relax here. We've got an important question to ask the minister. My question to the minister, does the minister think that making healthcare workers poorer makes long-term economic sense or improves the healthcare system in the
Mr. Speaker, although it may be a great source of frustration to the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, we entrust the administration of our hospitals and the day-to-day management to a hospital board. And the Calgary District Hospital Board is one that has the responsibility for 3 facilities, and they are working through their own management as leaders in their community. And I think if the Honourable Leader of the Opposition wants to suggest that government step in and tell them how to do their job, then he can go right ahead and do it. I don't happen to support that kind of model of healthcare delivery in our province. Secondly, he indicates that there is no help for health in this province, yet there's money for other things. Well, he's patently wrong. Health is the largest single expenditure of this government, and has been increased by some $300 million over last in this province. That's not a decrease, Mr. Speaker. In fact, it's a very sizable and I would argue appropriate increase. With respect to what we will be doing in health in the subsequent budget year, I think we'll have to await, as will all Albertans, the message from our provincial treasurer tonight. With respect to decisions made by the Calgary General Hospital Board, who's responsible for 2 sites of delivery, they have one model of service delivery in one of their sites and a different in the other site. The board is looking at the cost effectiveness, and they are proceeding with very good data that they have as an operator of 2 sites with 2 different systems. I believe it's a very appropriate way for them to review the problem. It is not a matter of being joyous over anybody losing a job, but a matter of ensuring that health dollars are spent in the most appropriate way.
Mr. Speaker, I remind this is a government that has money for Novotel, for the Principal Group, for GSR, for Marius, you name it, Mr. Speaker. But no money for health care again, Mr. Speaker, and it's not kept up to institutional inflation, and we know that the last number of years. Now, Mr. Speaker, my question, I want to come back to that minister, because it's her policy of squeezing them dry and then blaming it on the boards, Mr. Speaker, which caused the problems. And I want to ask her, because she refused to answer the question. Maybe she didn't hear it properly. I want to ask her why it is. I'm sorry, were you up? Well, okay, I understand. I was waiting for you to stand up. You had something to say. Mr. Speaker, my question again to this minister. These wages will go down from $10 to $11 plus benefits to $7 an hour. And I want to ask her how that makes economic sense for the working people of this province and how that will in the future add to health care in this province. Answer that question.
Well, Mr. Speaker, perhaps the Honourable Leader of the Opposition would like to put the question to the Chairman of the Calgary General Hospital. That hospital is looking at the best way they can get value out of their health dollars. They are making a decision. The chairman of that hospital board has assured me that with the changes that they are proposing, they will be protecting patient services above all else, albeit they may be delivering their health services in a little different way with delivery through outpatient programs as opposed to inpatient services. I happen to think it's a rather progressive move, and it's virtually the identical question that the member asked before. But he also made the point of saying there's no money for health care. In fact, in this year's 1991 budget, there's $3.4 billion for health care. He also insists on looking for blame in the health system. And I think to the compliment of the many, many thousands of Albertans who are involved in the delivery of health in this province, we have all of us, Mr. Speaker, accepting the responsibility to get the best value out of those $3.4 billion, and that is precisely the way we're proceeding.
Second main question.
Speaker, I don't need to look for blame. I know who to blame, this government, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to designate my second question to the member from Edmonton Kingsway.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions are to the Minister of Technology, Research and Telecommunications. Already during this session, we've seen the Minister admit to the fact that the Cabinet recklessly agreed to back Novotel losses for the second half of 1990. Those losses mostly occurred, $204 million mostly occurred in the second half of 1990. We're also on the hook for $525 million. Now, since the Auditor General has told the official opposition that in fact the 1990 Novotel audited financial statements are complete, will this minister tell this House and people of Alberta, the taxpayers that are paying the bills, exactly how much this mess has cost them by releasing those books immediately?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Novotel annual report will be filed in the normal course as required in due course. The Auditor General has reviewed the 1990 audited reports, and indeed the Auditor General may very well report on it as well.
What he's really saying is he's going to make us wait another year for the books. That's right. As usual. Well, given that Novatel's earnings suddenly, or losses suddenly changed from a $3.6 million gain to a $204 million loss, and that we're still on the hook for future monies this year, would the minister mind telling Albertans just how much Novotel has lost in the first 3 months of this year?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I don't have the information on an audited basis at all yet. We've had the 1990. We've put that over to the opposition and to the public generally and made it public within 24 hours of the time that we got that information. I think that was responsible and responsive as well. And indeed, all of that information has been made available through press releases, full information as to the accountability relative to those losses. And I'm sure the honourable member, if he reads those press releases, will get that information.
That's nonsense. We've not had one word about the losses in the first 3 months of 1991. That's what I was asking for. Well, we know that we're on the hook for $525 million in guarantees of one kind or another for Novotel. Will the minister assure the taxpayers that that's the bottom line, that they have not got an unlimited base on which that they can call on the taxpayers to pick up?
Well, Mr. Speaker, that's not quite the way it works. Anytime there's a financial arrangement made with respect to Novotel, it's put out there in a public way, and those financial arrangements under which it is now operating, Novotel continues to operate on that basis.
Member for Calgary-Buffalo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is to the Premier. As we go into budget night, Mr. Speaker, Albertans are appalled at the hundreds of millions of dollars which are being lost and wasted in government giveaway, loan, and grant programs over the past 5 years. Mr. Speaker, these aren't abstract numbers, but they translate into closed hospital beds, inaccessible universities, inadequate women's shelters, and increased user fees and taxes for all Albertans. Now, we see in the 1990 public accounts, Mr. Speaker, a footnote which refers to an interest-free loan of $81 million to Syncrude, in which a loss of $21 million was booked in 1990. I'm wondering whether the Free Enterprise Premier can tell the taxpayers of Alberta why they should give some of the largest companies in North America a loan which not only provides an interest-free benefit of $10 million a year, but which also appears not to be repayable.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Energy responsible for Syncrude is not here, but I think it's necessary to reply nevertheless to the allegations in the first part of the honourable member's question, because they were so completely false. What has happened in the last 5 years is the government has taken on a massive effort to turn around the economy of this province and to diversify it. In 1986, when the province had both a budget and an economy built on $40 a barrel oil, and the economy was running on oil at $10 to $13 a barrel. And this government said, we're not going to allow that to continue in the future. And we took on the effort, and the successful effort, to build and diversify this economy to where it is now, the best economy in Canada and probably North America. Now, Mr. Speaker, when you make that big a difference, you take on that large a project. Obviously, there will be from time to time, there are going to be problems. It won't always be perfect. There may even be mistakes. And those mistakes happen in such areas as Mirius, GSR, or others. But the big picture is that we've made a difference for all time in the economy of Alberta. It's diversified, it's strong, energy's down, agriculture's down, and it's still the #1 economy in North America. That's producing.
Sure we've diversified, Mr. Speaker, out of financial institutions and now out of cellular telephones. Well, I'm wondering whether the Premier, who surely must know the answer to this, can tell us could tell the taxpayers of Alberta whether in fact they're going to get that $81 million back from Syncrude, and if so, why is $21 million in loss booked in 1990?
Well, Mr. Speaker, now that he's narrowed it down to a straight question, and it does belong with the Minister of Energy, I'll make sure the Minister of Energy responds to him.
Well, maybe the Premier hasn't seen the agreements as well, and I'm wondering then, Mr. Speaker, whether the Premier could perhaps get his own wheelbarrow out and provide himself and this side of the House with a copy of that agreement, which has been refused to me so far.
I think, Mr. Speaker, the wheelbarrow is being used at a farm somewhere.
Calgary, Glenmore.
Mr. Speaker, according to a survey taken by the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, the confidence in the country's business economy is at a dangerously low level. This has led small business operators across the country to put themselves in a survival mode and bracing themselves for further deterioration. And the Minister of Economic Development and Trade has said many times that the backbone of this province depends on small business. Could the Minister please outline what this government has done to help small business and increase this survival mode?
Mr. Speaker, let me do so very quickly, but let me also leave the honourable member with the assurance that pessimism amongst the small business community is not as exaggerated within this province, because within this province, the small business community knows that we're setting a climate in which they can succeed. They succeed mainly on the basis of their own work ethic, but we also have the lowest taxation rate for the small business community of any province in Canada. In addition to that, we have an extensive list of programs that are available to the small business community, whether they are attempting to export their programs or their products, or whether they wish to have interest shielding. We've gone through a consistent time period of support for the small business community, and it's support that will be maintained for this very vital sector, which, as the honourable member indicated, is the backbone of our economic well-being in the province.
Well, Mr. Speaker, some of the small businesses in Alberta are still quite concerned about their survival, and I wonder if the Minister could outline the programs that his department and this government has given to them, especially with those involved in international business.
Mr. Speaker, in a general sense, we have in the past offered them interest shielding. In addition to that, we just recently announced an IBIS program whereby now we have it computerized the opportunities for companies that wish to access markets outside of our province. We've got our export loan guarantee program. We provide a matching service too for the business community. We offer them also business counseling. It's a wide variety of support services that we offer to the small business community, and we have worked over this past year with a number of clients totaling some 35 to 40,000 individuals within the small business community.
Calgary Mountain View.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In his recent report, the Auditor General makes some pretty scathing comments about this government's irresponsible approach when it comes to admitting to financial losses suffered from government guarantees and indemnities that go bad. The Auditor General says the province's annual losses arising from guarantees and indemnities is both understated and misleading. To the Minister of Economic Development and Trade, Mr. Speaker, given that the recent failure of Canadian Professional Munitions Limited in Raymond is just the latest example of the government's disregard for taxpayers' money, will the Minister accept the Auditor General's recommendation to change this practice in the public accounts, or will he continue with his present course, which only obscures and hides the truth from Albertans?
Mr. Speaker, if the honourable member would check the record, he will find that the provincial treasurer has already responded to the direct question as it relates to the Auditor General's report. But let me indicate to the honourable member, as our Premier has just indicated, had it not been for our intervention, we would still be flat on our back within this province. But because of our intervention, and because of that, we have the leading economic growth of any province in Canada. Yes, there are failures, and we readily admit that there are failures, but that failure rate is a very small percentage. It has been suggested by my other colleagues that it varies from anywhere from 3 to 5%. a very small failure rate. And we don't apologize for a moment over that failure rate, because if you examine the successes and the jobs that have been created for all Albertans, we're very proud that we are leading economic growth on a Canada-wide basis.
Thanks to this government's intervention, the province is $11 billion in debt. Mr. Speaker, given the Alberta taxpayers are likely to lose $670,000 in this latest failure at Canadian Professional Munitions, and given that Alberta taxpayers were, as of a year ago, on the hook for over $2 billion in other loan guarantees, heavens only knows what it is now, given these facts, will the minister admit that this practice by his government is out of control and somebody has to step in and bring it back into control and stop it?
Mr. Speaker, it's traditional of the New Democratic Party to participate in nonsense, and nonsense we've just heard from the honourable member as it relates to being out of control. I just indicated to him the success rate. We are also going to take the opportunity tonight, the provincial treasurer is, in his budget presentation, to share with the honourable member the success that we have had by involving ourselves with loan guarantees, whether it be for students, for the agricultural community, or for the small business sector. We've involved ourselves with thousands of them because we recognize the importance of when we were flat on our back, as again the Premier indicated in 85 and 86, to offer that support when it was required by the citizens of this great province. We're not going to hesitate to involve ourselves when it is required. But we also recognize now that we are the leading province as it relates to economic growth, we're pulling back, and we are pulling back substantially. As it relates to the specific question of the munitions factory in southern Alberta, yes, they are in receivership. There was a court order on March the 11th putting them into receivership, but it is far, far too early to indicate what losses will take place. There is a possibility that there will not be any losses, because in the event that some of the receivables and the actual physical facility there is sold, we could have all of our exposure covered. So it is far too early, Mr. Speaker, to indicate what losses we might suffer. We are hopeful, though, that there will be another group that will come in and take over that company, because they do provide a valuable service to southern Alberta and to Alberta as a whole.
Calgary Northwest.
Speaker, my question today is to the Minister for Labour. And despite denials to the contrary by the Department of Labour, a document is circulating in the province right now entitled Safety Codes Act, which is a replacement or another version of the Uniform General Safety Act that was published about 3 years ago. There's been quite a negative reaction by the stakeholders to this proposed piece of legislation, and my question to the Minister is simply this: is it the intent of the Minister to introduce this Safety Codes Act legislation despite all of the protests during this session of the legislature?
Mr. Speaker, we have an implementation committee that is chaired by the member for Rocky Mountain House that includes over 50 different interests, people ranging from trade unions through municipalities and counties and so forth, who have an interest in the safety legislation of this province, with one or two small details left to be worked out between them. All of their concerns have been addressed, and as I understand it, the proposal that is coming forward is one that has the consensus of that implementation committee.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that is exactly not my information. Terms that I've heard about this proposed legislation include terms like wholly redundant. And so I would ask the Minister if she will directly herself, not a committee, but will the Minister herself commit to withholding the legislation and consulting with these stakeholders that I know have made presentations until their concerns have been addressed and the legislation proposed changed?
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's quite possible that the member who is raising this question is not as involved in the process as myself or the member for Rocky Mountain House has been. I would be more than happy for him to share some specifics with me, as I dare say I have more recent information than does he.
Smoky River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Teachers in my constituency and throughout the province are concerned about their pensions. They tell me that the Teachers' Retirement Fund may be exhausted by the year 2006, which is just 15 years from now. I've heard that this problem has come about because the government has not been meeting its obligation to meet the employer contributions. Will the minister please share with the Assembly and with my teachers why the government has failed in fulfilling its responsibility?
Mr. Speaker, nothing could be further from the truth. The provincial government in 1956 struck a deal with Alberta Teachers Association such that the provincial government would contribute 1/2 of the annual cost of pensions, and this year that's some $70 million plus. On the other hand, teachers would contribute to the Teachers Retirement Fund, and that fund would hopefully generate enough dollars to pay for the other 1/2 share of the cost. In fact, this year's contribution by teachers to the Teachers Retirement Fund is in the order of $57 million. So, Mr. Speaker, the government has lived up to, and fully lived up to, both the letter and the spirit of the 1956 agreement. It's 1991, times have changed, and there is concern, Mr. Speaker, shared by teachers and shared by this government about the long-term viability of that plan, and we have committed to make changes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to hear that the government has indeed been meeting its obligation. However, that will not totally allay the concerns of my constituents and the teachers, of course, regarding the Teachers Retirement Fund. There are also concerns about the re-registration of the TRF because of the new federal legislation. Will the minister please let the Assembly know, and the teachers as well within my constituency, if he has plans or any plans at all to deal with this serious problem?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I mentioned earlier, and I've mentioned earlier previously in this House, the Alberta Teachers Association has undertaken a very constructive information effort, which has been positive and constructive and has informed their membership and has certainly informed all members in this Assembly about the concern. And, Mr. Speaker, we do share that concern. I made that clear to the Alberta Teachers Association last night, that Premier Getty and this government share the teachers' concern about the longer-term financial soundness of the pension plan. And this past week, I've written on behalf of the government to the president of the Alberta Teachers Association, advising her that the government is prepared to enter into immediate discussions with the ATA to make changes to the TRF. And there are a number of issues that must be dealt with. But in the short term, Mr. Speaker, our objective is to make legislative changes to the fund this spring, to the legislation behind the Teachers Retirement Fund this spring, to ensure that it does continue to stay registered under the Canadian income tax law. And urgent discussions will begin as early as next week between the association staff and the department staff to pull together the framework for those legislative changes. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm convinced that by working together, the government and teachers will be able to come up with a long-term, sound financial plan for the teachers of Smoky River and for all teachers in this province.
Edmonton Belmont.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question today is to the Minister of Career Development and Employment. And despite the Minister's assurances that he has the support of the Building Trades Council over the proposed Industry Training Act, I have information that's contrary to that. Mr. Speaker, there's provision in the proposed act that in Part 2 that would allow for certain exemptions for certification requirements. And that could mean that workers from outside Alberta, or indeed from outside Canada, possessing any variety of qualifications will be able to come into our province, not necessarily meet the Alberta standard, and will be permitted to work in our province. So given that the proposal will put at risk Alberta tradespeople, their safety, the safety of the general public, I want to ask the Minister of Career Development and Employment, what assurances can he give this Assembly that certain guidelines will be maintained so that safety will be maintained in the Act?
Well, Mr. Speaker, and through to all members of the Assembly, first of all, may I say I appreciate the Honourable Member for Edmonton Belmont's interest. The debate, whether we have support or non-support with regards to specific groups, I guess only time will tell that when the legislation is introduced in the Assembly. With regards to the exemptions the honourable member refers to, I might point out to the Assembly, Mr. Speaker, that that's nothing new. The exemptions are there in the current Manpower Development Act. What we are endeavoring to do in the revised or proposed Industry and Training Act, Mr. Speaker, would be to clear up any ambiguity and at the same time prevent any misuse or abuse that is taking place as it exists today. Safety will always be and will be at the forefront of the proposed legislation, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, following the tabling of the legislation, I wonder if the minister will commit to undertake to obtain further input from the Building Trades Council and other trade representatives so that they may comment on the bill following its introduction in this legislature.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's always been my intent to have an open door policy, and that intent will remain. I've always said I'll never lower my principles to be a politician when I entered into this assembly, and that stands true to this day. And that's why I've had many public meetings with all sectors and would encourage that representation and would give that commitment to the honourable member before any legislation would be finalized.
Edmonton Avamore, followed by Edmonton Goldbar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions are to the Minister of Labour. In spite of the rhetoric of this government about equal rights for all, discrimination against lesbian and gay people continues, as evidenced by the recent case of a college instructor who was fired because he is gay. The Minister of Labour has, in other instances, directed the Commission to assist with complaints which are not covered by the Individual Rights Protection Act. Will the Minister now instruct the Human Rights Commission to accept and investigate a complaint in this instance?
Mr. Speaker, the Human Rights Commission is an independent body, and in discussions with the Chief Commissioner, he has indicated to me, as I believe he has indicated publicly, that the Commission itself does not have a consensus on this matter. It is not covered by their legislation, and therefore they have declined to do as the member suggests.
Mr. Speaker, in Alberta, a person who had good job reviews was fired solely because of his sexual orientation, in spite of the fact that a majority of Albertans think it's wrong that a person can be denied housing, employment, or services on the basis of sexual orientation. In the face of this evidence, will the minister now agree to amend the Individual Rights Protection Act to include sexual orientation?
Mr. Speaker, it is not up to me to amend the legislation. That would be up to the entire Legislative Assembly.
Edmonton Goldbar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So I can hear. Thank you, Edmonton Goldbar.
Mr. Speaker, government continually expresses concern and sympathy over the epidemic in our province called family violence. Unfortunately, that gives very little comfort to the families, and especially the children who live daily in a house of horrors. Mr. Speaker, these families need more than assurances from the government. They need to know that there's a network of supports in place to help them reconstruct their lives in a safe environment. My questions are to the Minister of Family and Social Services. Mr. Speaker, last fall, the Solicitor General responded quite favorably to my suggestion that the government review the very successful London, Ontario model for dealing with family violence. I'd like to ask the Minister if he has, in fact, followed up on this promise to review and hopefully establish a London-type model here in this province.
Mr. Speaker, I can assure the member for Goldbar that we have established an interdepartmental committee that involves the Solicitor General and others on the government side to address this very serious problem. I would say that we have some very successful models that have been established in our own province that we can turn to as well, Mr. Speaker, and I think of a very successful effort that involved two levels of government, Mr. Speaker. It involved workers from our department. It involved a number of ministries from this side of the House, and we've put together, Mr. Speaker, a training video that involves child apprehension as it relates to sexual abuse cases. It's a video, Mr. Speaker, that is now being asked for right across Canada and the United States. So we're doing some very successful things, and yes, Mr. Speaker, we recognize that there's more to be done.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I don't discount training, but I think what people are looking for in this province is leadership in action, and this is a successful model. Mr. Speaker, earlier in this House, the Minister of Family and Social Services claimed his responsibility only for children that are under his jurisdiction in the Child Welfare Act in terms of providing follow-up treatment and counseling. Well, Mr. Speaker, there are many children residing in his shelters and thousands more turned away from shelters who also require counseling. I want to know from the Minister how he plans to deal with these. Are they just perhaps out of luck?
Well, again, Mr. Speaker, I've already made it very clear to the member that we're working on it together as the department, but I've said as a government, but I've said on many occasions, Mr. Speaker, that it's not this government's problem alone, that it's something that's going to require the efforts of Albertans and Canadians at all levels, and we're seeing that happening, Mr. Speaker. I'm encouraged to note that in the last 2 years alone, there's been an increase of some 24% in community agencies that are prepared to respond to this. We've seen now, Mr. Speaker, the federal government show some leadership and some initiatives and a willingness to work with us and other levels of government. I'm encouraged to see the Mayor of Calgary and the Mayor of Edmonton come forward with some of their thoughts and suggestions and some solutions that they're prepared to offer. Mr. Speaker, I've said all along, again, that it's going to require the effort of all of us working together. We are more than prepared to do our share, Mr. Speaker. I'd remind the member opposite that last year alone, this government spent in excess of $137 million providing child welfare services. I'd say that's a pretty substantive commitment, Mr. Speaker. So again, we're showing some leadership, and we're willing to work with the other players involved.
Athabasca-Lackland, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Honourable Minister of Environment. As most of you are aware, the construction of the ALPAC project will commence in my constituency very shortly, providing thousands of needed jobs for people in poverty in that region. A 2,000-man camp or person camp will be established on site. Mr. Speaker, I understand the work camp associated with the Dai Shower project experienced some environmental problems recently. My question to the Honourable Minister is, could the Minister outline to my constituents and to this Assembly as to what those problems are associated with the camp at Dai Shower?
Well, first of all, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to point out that no charges have been laid against Dai Showa Canada. However, Alberta Environment is considering a number of enforcement actions in conjunction with the Attorney General's Department. And I would like to emphasize, Mr. Speaker, that the enforcement actions that have arisen out of our investigations at this time have to do solely with the operation of the work camp. In other words, the enforcement actions center largely around the operation of the work camp's sewage treatment facilities. And insofar as the mill itself is concerned, it continues to operate as one of the cleanest mills in the world, thanks to the standards set by this government.
Mr. Speaker, my supplement to the Honourable Minister is, could the Minister give assurance to this Assembly and my constituents that his department will monitor closely the camp that's going to be established during construction of ALPAC?
Mr. Speaker, you know, we can always learn from the mistakes of others, and indeed, we have encouraged the ALPAC people to make contact with the Dai Showa people to determine what mistakes can be avoided in the operation of the work camp as it relates to the ALPAC project.
Edmonton Beverly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions are to the Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs. It's been almost a year now since the review of the Landlords and Tenants Act reported its recommendations to the Minister, and while the Minister has been studying and reviewing the report, Alberta renters have continued to face arbitrary evictions and substandard housing. Will the Minister make a commitment to introduce and pass during this sitting of the session legislation which will increase protection for renters?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is right. We did have the McLaughlin report which reviewed the Landlord and Tenant Act
did meet with people throughout the province and try to make recommendations that would ensure that a balance is maintained between the rights of tenants and landlords in the province of Alberta. We then sent out that report and have asked for a response from the citizens, the landlords and tenants, to the recommendation contained therein. We are in the midst of compiling and discussing that. I am hopeful that we will see legislation with respect to it in the not too distant future, but above all, we want to ensure that the report contains a fair and equitable treatment of all parties involved and is based on the solidest of information available, and we're continuing to strive to achieve that goal.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the tenants would be looking forward for this legislation to be brought forward, because we're still having problems with security deposits, money being held unfairly. Tenants have to go to court to get the money back, and in one case, the minister's own department has to intervene and in fact charge the landlord. Then the question is to the minister, will the minister agree that security deposits should be paid to a trust account administered by the Residential Tenancy Commission so that tenants can get their money quickly without having to resort to court action?
Mr. Speaker, we'll have to leave discussion of specifics until the time when a bill is introduced. However, I would say that with regards to deposits, we have taken strong action in the very unusual case where an individual has not paid those damaged deposits back, and that isn't acceptable by this government. I would also agree that the issue of a trust account for deposits is one that should seriously be considered when we're looking at changes to the Act.
Edmonton Meadowlark. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a federal court decision last year rendered illegal the province's continued construction of the Old Man Dam until a court-ordered federal environmental assessment is completed. Now the assessment panel is concerned that the province's continued illegal construction of that dam will preclude its recommendations to the Minister of Public Works. Will this minister honor the assessment of the panel's request, and not close the second diversion tunnel of the dam, thereby not filling the reservoir until the panel has completed its review so that their recommendations will not be precluded?
Mr. Speaker, the member from Edmonton Meadowlark is 100% wrong. I'm going to repeat that again. 100% wrong, as is the Liberal Party in this whole issue. No one has ever stated that it was an illegal act to build the Old Man River Dam. The Old Man River Dam is probably the most important environmental protection and enhancement project undertaken in North America in a great period of time. And Mr. Speaker, as we stand here in the fourth day of April, 1991, the waters of the Old Man River are flowing unimpeded.
Thank you very much for your direction, Edmonton Belmont, and I hope you get over your cough fairly soon. Edmonton Meadowlark.
Since the minister in this government keeps saying, Mr. Speaker, that this law, this federal decision doesn't apply to the government, and therefore the government isn't breaking the law, why is it that the Attorney General is going to all the trouble of appealing this through the Supreme Court of Canada?
Mr. Speaker, there have been a series of court cases that have been initiated over recent years. All members will recall, and I'm sure a great number of people in this province will recall in statements made in 1986 that when one were to undertake a construction project of this magnitude, one would have to anticipate that there would be a series of challenges with respect to this from various quarters, some credible and some not credible, Mr. Speaker. But when a challenge has been made, and it's my understanding that for, $50 or something, you can have something brought before a Court of Queen's Bench, that means then you are then in a process. The fact of the matter is that on April 4, 1991, the Old Man River Dam is on a construction target that is essentially one that was enunciated some 5 years ago. It's within budget. The waters of the Old Man River, I repeat, are flowing unimpeded on April 4, 1991. And, Mr. Speaker, there is not one person out there who's ever suggested credibly that the Alberta government is doing anything other than the right thing.
Right on. Everything Calder.
Mr. Speaker, people living on AISH, even after the meager increase given by this government last fall, still live well below the poverty line. And to make matters worse, this Conservative government continues to disallow AISH recipients to keep their Canada Pension Plan disability benefits, which they have earned, and is once again taking away the cost of living increase which the federal government recently gave to CPP recipients. My questions are to the Associate Minister of Family and Social Services. In view of the fact that this government allowed CPP recipients to keep this cost of living increase during the past 2 years, how can this government now justify once again taking away this money which does not belong to them?
Mr. Speaker, the shared responsibility we have between the federal government and ourselves is one of a mutually agreed upon arrangement where we will supplement to a given point. That given point has been raised recently, and we will continue to top up, as you will, any benefits that are transferred from the federal government. But for a 2-year period that was referred to, we had looked at this program in an attempt to modify it, if you will, and it hasn't worked out, and we've had to revert back to our original arrangement.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker. Well, Mr. Speaker, this money was earmarked by the federal government to go to the poorest of the poor, and it's shameful that this government is taking away this money. Mr. Speaker, in view of the fact that this government has set up a Premier's Council for persons with disabilities, will this government now show its sincerity and agree to give back this cost of living increase from the federal government and also allow AISH recipients to keep their disability benefits?
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to point out that Alberta is one of the few provinces in Canada that has such a program, and as such, it is the most beneficial to the recipient. I'd also like to point out that there are other hidden benefits that are associated with the program that perhaps are not being addressed or even recognized by the opposition member. The program also includes optical, ambulance, prescription drugs, denturist and dental services, as well as other. The program is perhaps not as good as we would all hope it would be, but then there is a limitation, and I believe that the program more than adequately addresses within our range of ability to meet the needs.
Time for question period has expired. The chair would just remind honorable members when framing questions that care has to be given to the fact that we do have a considerable number of written questions and motions for return on the order paper, and really they shouldn't be repeated almost verbatim in some senses within question period. The member for Calgary-Buffalo has a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a point of order under 13.2 of the standing orders, and it relates to the fact that the Premier was not seated when the question period list was being set, Mr. Speaker. I note in this context that last week I lost a question as a result of not being in my place after prayers, and this seems to me to raise exactly the same principle, Mr. Speaker, as arose in my situation, and I must say that I have difficulty seeing how the Premier or any other minister of this government would have the right to full participation in the question period, even if they may come in, as often is the case, halfway through the question period. The fact is, I think they should be able to participate, but I think this really points out that that the rule. Shut up. I think this points out that the rule that the Speaker was applying in respect of myself last week is totally inappropriate. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Order, please. Take your place, honorable member. The first point of your comments, I'm certain could be seen as being a facetious context. The chair would point out that you yourself are a student of the law. At least I assume you are a student of the law. That we'll deal with legal niceties. The ruling last week dealt with questions. It didn't deal with the answers. But in the last moment or two, sir, you have exceeded the bound of proper conduct in this House. You are now questioning the actions of the chair, and your comments are totally out of order. And I trust that this will be the end of that. I'm sure that your own good judgment will come to bear in due course. And I also trust that in future you'll be good enough to make your comments either privately to the chair or to the House and not deal in idle chit-chat with the media. Member for Edmonton Gold Bar, Standing Order 40, request for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask leave for unanimous consent on the following motion, which has been circulated to members of the Assembly. Be it resolved that pursuant to Government Motion 5, Section 4, the Legislative Assembly appoint the following members to the Special Select Committee, Constitutional Reform, Sheldon Schumer and Yolande Gagnon. Mr. Speaker, just related to the urgency, the Legislative Assembly has now formalized this Special Select Committee and given it terms of reference and members from the government and from the opposition. It's my understanding that their first meeting will be tomorrow afternoon. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal caucus asks consent to introduce and support this motion in order that we may participate in the hearings and deliberations of the committee.
There's a request for unanimous consent. All those in favor of granting the consent, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried unanimously. Member for Gold Bar, Edmonton Gold Bar.
Mr. Speaker, this motion is certainly self-explanatory. We are hopeful that given the significance of the undertaking, that the committee will involve all Albertans and that it will be an open and very objective process. Mr. Speaker, we ask for support.
Government House Leader.
Speaker, we welcome this motion and look forward to participation of the official opposition and now the Liberal Party in the process of consulting with Albertans on the importance of Canada's future and Alberta within a new Canada.
Okay. Call for the question. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried. Thank you. Orders of the day.
Written questions.
Deputy Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker.